Hi, folks. I'm Eric Core. Welcome to interview I'm doing with Elizabeth McGrath, or Liz, as I often call her. And I'm really excited about this today, doing an interview for Punk Globe. And I'm most excited because Liz is what I would call a triple threat. We've got an artist, author, musician. There's probably more here that I'm not even aware of. But you bring a lot to the table, and you've done really, like, whatever you do really cool, innovative work, and you find a way to express yourself that's really special. So I was just remember, like, I think we actually met through a KXLU
Oh,
sample.
was
Does that
it?
sound
Okay.
does that sound
Um,
familiar or not?
I thought we met because we were swapping fanzines, maybe.
It could
Uh,
be.
this was before the time of like phone. Like, like I think maybe flip phones were just a
Oh, it was
thing a few
before that
years.
even.
Oh wow. Yeah, so we had the, in the mail fanzine type things, but I feel like you had a fanzine or you were writing perhaps Punk Globe, because that's been around for gosh, Ginger's been doing that forever, but
Forever,
it
yeah.
could be KXLU that could maybe be something. Were you out here playing a show?
Well, yeah, because I think there was Fred did this thing where it was a demolition show.
What
And he put out a thing of, like, recordings from a bunch of bands, and I think I could be completely wrong because I don't even know where I'd have it, but there was one that he did with Beck, and I think we were both on that one, and it was really cool. It was like an acoustic song by Beck.
I do remember when he was doing that, but I think we met before that, perhaps.
It could be. I don't remember a lot from back in my early life.
I totally know the feeling. Um, I see. Well, now all my memories come back, but like in the middle of the night, like, oh, why did I say that or something. But I seem to recall for some reason we were up there and we had reached out to each other through the fanzines and you were gonna we were with playing with crack. No, not well, we were playing with crack, but I think at this point we were meeting up with the Chicken McNuggets, Bobby Joey Bola and the Chicken McNuggets, or
Right.
possibly crack, or possibly both of them. And we had just played San Jose, and some your name came up, and I'm like, oh, we've been, in contact, and to see if there was anything going on in San Francisco because we didn't quite have that scene down yet. There was Gilman, but there wasn't like, so you just were like, oh, I feel like you organized like an impromptu, just last minute, that morning. You were just gonna call a bunch of your friends, and we just went by the bridge, like by like a little beachy area under the bridge, Golden Gate Bridge or
Could be
something.
because I did do a couple, like, Gorilla Beach shows.
I feel like this was very guerrilla and everybody was all hungover and like and then we were all kind of, and you were so gracious. You're like, because everybody was still waking up, but you're like, you just started playing, like you just, and everybody was in the van. I just remember everybody like, what? Like, what's going on? And it was just you playing, and I'm pretty sure you were wearing a dress and you were like, and it was like, the feedback and because we were still setting up the system, but you were just really aggressively playing on your acoustic guitar, and it was awesome. With the like the water behind us and the bridge right there, and it just really felt like, and there was a little bit of fog, and it was such a cool, scene. And it was also like the first time that I'd seen someone really doing, playing, yeah, because I'm pretty sure your lyrics were pretty political,
Hmm.
and just playing this really aggressive, what's considered a folk instrument, but making it, punk. And I don't know. It was just cool. The whole presentation. And you were wearing a dress, which, I think the whole LA scene was more, or at least the part that we were like San Gabriel Valley, which, we oftentimes kind of play sometimes over behind the orange curtain and stuff like that. And it was kind of just really aggressive and kind of very, male energy kind of stuff. So it was cool to see male energy wearing a dress.
Well,
But
and I think the scene up
thanks.
here has always been a little bit more experimental and political. and a little more playful too.
Yeah, it was great. And everybody was like, I remember Ivan, our guitar player, was like, "What?" And like Rick and everyone, yeah, and everyone was, and then I think like it was maybe Bobby Joel, Ebola, or some of the guys who knew you. It was maybe Crack, and I cannot remember. Maybe both of them. I don't know. But yeah, they're like, yeah, like they were looking on proudly, like, yeah, that's our friend.
Now we're
So.
actually doing a gig with Bobby Joe just started gigging again. We're going to be playing with them soon. So
Oh, they were playing, maybe like I can't, God, time escapes me, but they were staying at my friend's Winter's house, and I had just I was actually like on bed rest some of the times they were coming out because I had this like difficult pregnancy. And so I kind of missed them every time they were out. So I know that they were out recently and they had talked to Rick. So hopefully we get to see them. And they're doing a lot of stuff. I guess they did some stuff with Green Day or something.
they might have they did a oh yeah yeah Corbett did a thing on the East Bay music scene, and Green Day was tied into that, and kind of the early scene, and yeah, they got a new album. They've got some really great songs on it.
Oh man, their music was so cool. That was, that was kind of my intro. You and them and really you and them were like my intro to like acousticy kind of harmonic, because they would do those really interesting and but like in a punk way with, I don't know. It was cool. That kind of opened my mind a lot. And plus you were doing was it what did you you had a name for it? Was it queer punk? What was it?
Like queercore, queer acoustic punk, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, that was really cool because we were coming from the like it was not really widely accepted. It took so just by saying that was really punk. It's like it wasn't widely accepted in LA at that time. I mean there was like Pansy Division and there was definitely some punk bands doing it, but they were more like in Hollywood area and we were more like the suburbs, like San Gabriel
Hmm.
Valley. So it was still kind of just, you know, um, there was it was kind of like I like when I think of it, it's kind of like there was a lot of kind of maybe gangs, but then this is like they're old, maybe some of the people I knew in the punk scene, like their older brothers might have been like cholos, maybe, but they're like, into the Cure and stuff, and they would get, made fun of by like their, whatever their uncles or whatever, like, hey, what is that gay stuff you're, like be picked on for wearing, like I had friends that would wear dresses and they were really goth, but they were kind of more Robert Smith. Kind of got like, oh God, we were talking, I think, about the Knockout, the owner
Oh
of the
yeah, yeah.
Knockout, John Segura. I remember he would show up because there was this one like kind of gothy club, and it would be like him and I knew his best friend Javier because he was an altar boy at my church. And they would like go to I think it was called Maryland's Backstreet where Divine performed there actually. But it was kind of like a goth club or mainly that. I don't think there was punk because the punks would wait on the outside. That's when like punks and goths and emo wasn't around, but they would like fight each other. But yeah, John and Javier, like John would show up in like a black goth dress, his whole Robert Smith thing and like lipstick, but like smeared and
Right.
like um, and then, I remember sometimes there'd be punks. And actually, it's funny because they're all friends now, but there'd be some of the punks or the mods or whatever hanging out in the parking lot waiting to beat them up. And yeah, they'd come out with they'd pull like nunchucks out of their like dress.
Okay.
Hey, let's go. And like, so it was just kind of funny to see that. But it was, it was more just kind of the separation, like of all the different scenes, and nobody really crossed those. Now it's like it's kind of cool that it's not cool that it's Hot Topic, but it's kind of like it brought everyone together. It's like all the scenes under one. Now you can just pop on that whatever outfit represents whatever. Now
Oh
everything's
yeah, you
in
can
house,
goth
but
on
back.
Tuesday, punk on Wednesday, and metal on Thursday.
Which, it's hey, experiment. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, it just was back in the day. It was really like you can't. There was really no crossing these borders. So yeah, that kind of opened my eyes when I went up there. I'm like, oh, all the borders are crossed. Just you know what I mean? Like, let's cross those lines. So it just kind of and I'm sure it was happening too. But in my mind, because we started in like '89, we were still. I don't think we were 21 yet. So it was kind of a it kind of a broad, as you get older, everything is everything. You're just like, what?
Well, even up
But
here, I got a lot of pushback. I mean, I used to get death threats and stuff like that, and
oh wow. Yeah, I'm sure you did. I mean,
so it
that
was
would
it was upsetting the norm. And there's people who get really bent about that, and
and it's sad to see that that's kind of, I mean, it feels like it's kind of starting up again. And so I really, it's just, it's like so many, it would be, yeah, literally you'd be walking down the street and, not so much me, but I mean, I definitely get yelled at, but back then you get yelled at anyways. Like, a million people like either catcalling you or saying something. And like, I guess, but if you were dressed weirdly, hey, whatever, they felt like
right.
that was open season. But it could also get violent. Like if I was a guy or whatever, it could get like let's corner this guy and beat him up, because we have every right to. And I just feel like it was kind of a weird, dangerous time. And it just it
I
just
think
sucks
up
because we
here there was,
progressed.
yeah, I think up here you get the threats, but I think down there you definitely had more of the violence.
It was, yeah, it was, and I don't know if the catalyst was that. It was just any excuse to kind of maybe, but yeah, it wasn't like an everyday occasion. But well, I would hear about this from people. I know that a lot of people I knew struggled with with that growing up. The threat of having to conceal yourself, because
Yeah. Well,
you don't know what's lurking around the corner.
there was a lot of pushing against the norms in those days, and I think that's one of the nice things, like you were saying about the hot topic, though, is like so many of those, like so many of the norms have just been broken.
Yeah,
And
that
so
and,
it's kind
and
of
then the
nice because, like,
internet.
younger people today can experiment and try in different identities, and without that level of fear that was part of, earlier times. So,
I mean, yeah, back then you would really get called like, hey, a poser or whatever. So it'd be like, gosh, what was a band? I mean, I think people were still pissed about like bands that, metal bands, and once they cut their hair or whatever,
oh
or like
yeah.
punk bands that grew their hair long, or like, Des Cadena, played with Tongue a little, he would play with us now. I was like his roommate, him and Jimmy Wilsey. So Dez was the original singer for Black Flag,
Yeah.
and Jimmy Wilsey was bass player for the Avengers and a guitar player for like Chris Isaac and stuff. But Jimmy's wife was one of my best friends, Winter. So we all kind of lived together for a short time. But yeah, I remember Dez was like would like grow his hair long, and every now and then like we did a show somewhere and he came up on stage and there's all these people slam dancing, and then he came up and he wanted to do Flashlight because he was really into funk. And everybody just stopped and looked at him like, who the fuck is this guy with the long hair coming up? Who does he think he is? And it's, he's a lovable guy and he's just kind of like oblivious to all of that. And Rick had to be like, this is, Des Cadena from Black Flag. And all of a sudden, like the crowd erupts and everything, but it's like unheard of. Like he's got long hair. What the heck? He doesn't fit the box.
It's funny because punk became its own self-policing religion at some point, I think.
Yeah, God, I heard about who was it that got beat up at Gilman Street? Because
Oh,
they're
Jello
like,
Biafra years ago, yeah.
yeah, that was kind of a yeah, and but then it kind of like God, I remember that the Green Day. I wasn't really into that because I felt like, oh, it's ruining punk. I was part of that self-policing thing. But they had that song about sellouts, which was supposed to be, I think, sarcastic, but everyone's like, yeah, it's cool to be a sellout now. And then it just kind of, you know what I mean? And it kind of destroyed, you know. I kind of hated the gatekeeping back then because I'd be trapped in a van. I'd be the only girl with like fucking really a bunch of music nerds, and they just talk about like, whatever band they were into and dissecting like every different member of every different year, all this stuff. And it was just my lizard eyes would just go on and be like, shut up, shut up. So I kind of didn't absorb any of it, like, and it but so they would do that and it would help guard against people pirating stuff or whatever because they would know the whole history
Right.
and nobody could like steal that, and I know like, and I know a lot of people that are into hip hop too, and they're, oh, you can't steal that beat, like whatever. So it's, but now it just seems like everything's open season for pirating, and that also in the art world would happen a lot. Like if somebody took a design from someone else, when the internet, early days of the internet, it would people would call them out that like they weren't having it, and I know street artists and graffiti artists definitely is like that, now it just seems like open season, and now there's AI just taking everything. So it's kind of like, oh my gosh, like how do you protect your thing? So in a way, that gatekeeping was kind of a way to protect people's art and make sure it didn't get pirated too much. And now it's kind of that's gone. So on the one hand, it's great that Hot Topic kind of brought everything under one roof, and later the internet, of course, brought everything together. But also in doing that, it kind of stopped protecting some of the art that people had created because nobody knows the original person who did that riff or who did that design or where the influence came. And it's okay, people borrow ideas, they borrow songs, but they give credit, and that's really what
Um,
the gatekeeping was about. Like give the people credit so we know the history and how this came about, and that's lost. So there's all this really, you start seeing the same symbols and you start hearing, kind of the same sounds, which develop into a music genre or an art genre. Like I'm in the lowbrow, I guess, or which then became pop surrealism genre. But, there's a history how it got there. I mean, there was the pinstripers on car hot rods, and stuff. There's Robert Williams and Mark Ryden kind of ushered in the pop surreal and La Luz de Jesus, Wacko. There's all the history of how I got there and the people that influenced me and it just it just
yeah.
goes on, and a lot of that is just lost because everyone just is like, oh, I saw that on the internet last year, and it's just like, and someone new will pop up and take that, and now AI just has it. So in a way, we're kind of losing our history of
But what's
these
crazy
symbols.
about that at the same time, there's actually people doing PhD work where they're getting like punk fanzines and they're actually doing like PhDs on this history through. So it's on one hand, it's also becoming like institutionalized knowledge. So it's really bizarre, like this whole, you know,
That you know what? It's interesting that you bring that up because I actually did a lecture at LSU for these. Gosh, I'm so sorry I've spaced on their names, but they were so cool, and I was asked to jury an art show at in Baton Rouge for it's the gosh, I know now I'm forgetting that name, but they were one of the oldest artist co-op in America, and they're in Baton Rouge. I'm totally spacing on the name. I so sorry, but and so while and they, I don't even know how they. Well, Greg Escalante, who is awesome, whose brother is Joe Escalante from the Vandals, but who kind of it's a weird way how I segued into art because of them, but basically Greg had a gallery and he recommended me to them, and I think the other choices were not available, so they got me. But they were so cool, and it was a really fun show, and I had to jury this big art show. And while I was out there, LSU contacted me, and these two professors were teaching a class on lowbrow art and pop surrealism, the history of it. And I was just like, what? Like that. And then thinking about it, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was trying to put together a PowerPoint. Like I had to learn the program on the plane. It was such a last minute thing, but they were offering free housing, free hotel. I guess the universities had their own hotel, and yeah, I'm on a budget. So I was like, oh, and they were going to pay me to do it. So I was like, heck yeah. So I'm trying to put together the history, and it was just really cool to see the points in which punk and LA and just all these cultures kind of came together. One of them was Last Gasp, which is up there in San Francisco, and they did a lot of underground comics, the Fabulous Freak Brothers, and all these, so it's just all these things, and Crumb was another one, of course, and Robert Williams. So it kind of came, Fritz the Cat kind of stuff that emerged into this, car culture in LA, and which then, Robert Williams kind of did this whole lowbrow thing, and then that kind of became pop surrealism, and now who knows? Now it's all AI. So,
well, but I mean, I think like let's talk about your art for a minute because I mean, I think your art is just fantastic, and I know we've talked a little bit about it, but it's like um, there are elements of like pop art, but there's also elements of surrealism. There's a darkness and a light, like almost you were talking about the yin and yang before. There's this incredible tension in your work. There's a sensitivity, but there's also a bluntness at times. And for people who haven't seen it, please go check out elizabethmcgrath.com. Check out your website. The work is fantastic because it also reminds me of something that could be like in a Tsarist castle somewhere in Russia. Um, it fascinates me, and I'm just curious. Like, you know, I knew you through your music journey, and I think when I met you, I didn't even know there was this whole art side to you. But where did that come from? Where did that develop from? Because it's really AI is not going to come up with what you did,
I hope
right?
not.
It could try and follow you there, but it's not going to get there on its own. And that I mean, there's something so wonderfully human and just really magical about your work. So where does that come from? How do you get there? What was your journey like for you?
I guess the journey, well, I'll just start where it kind of started getting exciting. But uh I wanted to do like I would make the fly, I kind of always was thrown into kind of making art. Like I kind of, I was kind of into it, and then my aunt owned a restaurant in Brea and Upland. It was like at one point the longest Irish bar in like in Southern California, because she had this giant, it was called Magnolia's Peach, and there was a giant naked lady holding her boob like above this bar. It was like this brick. It was really beautiful, but she was like, "Come on, make the," I was at a really young age. She was like, "You're gonna make the menus. You're gonna." So she would have me do busy work. I mean, they didn't actually use them for the menus, but I would, do the leprechaun graveyard, or like dress the taxidermy that they had all over, like put clothing on them, and
Oh,
all
fun.
these kind of, yeah, like all these really, because she was kind of out there, like, she would wear black lipstick and had, big teased out blonde hair, and like always wearing like, dark hoodies with matte, just always black hoodies that had Magnolia's Peach on it with zipped down, and she had really big boobs, like zipped down to like dangerously popping out, and just, really tight jeans. And, she was a Wiccan, where my dad was like going to be a Catholic priest. Their mom put them in, basically sent them away to, you know, she went to like a school, an all-girls school run by nuns, and he went to one run by priests. So she totally rebelled, and he totally went with it.
Hmm.
But anyways, and then, my 13th birthday, I was really starting to get into punk and stuff. And around my 13th birthday, my parents were like, we're going to go to the wild animal park. But instead of going to the wild animal park, they dropped me off at this place called Victory Home for Girls. And it was a Southern Baptist boarding school. It was horrible. But like, there was no books but the Bible. We couldn't even make eye contact with each other. I mean, I had been to juvenile hall after that, and well, not really juvenile, McLaren Hall, basically jail for kids. But it was so much more fun than like the girls' home. But the one thing, he was the preacher, Brother Palmer, would be like, "Oh, I heard that, you like to do art." So he would give me special privileges to make, like, I had to make this giant do right tree and a do wrong tree, where we'd write the sins of the girls and like with their name. So if anybody did anything wrong, I'd have to make, like, their name and put it on the tree, and design these big trees and all this stuff. And all the girls there would want me to write on draw on their envelopes. So it was kind of like I'd get traded extra food for that, So it was kind of like this commodity. And then after that, it kind of gave me this, I don't know, like, oh, I could maybe do something with that. So it just kind of stuck with me. And then so I wanted to do the flyers and all this stuff, and I wanted to do all these things when I was going into when I started the band. Or I didn't start the band. The band was formed by this guy that wanted to do an all Asian punk band, but with a girl singer. And at the time, he's like, "You're the only Asian girl I know," even though I'm half Asian. So his name is Jared. I guess he actually didn't stay in the band, and it ended up being Rick Collins, who is actually not Asian, but he's Mexican, but he looks Asian. So he got in the van. So anyways, but I mean, we did have like parts of the all Asian element, but then that kind of dropped. And then it just really didn't matter. It was like whoever. But I wanted to make all the flyers and do all this stuff, but I had to battle Ivan, who was going to be the artist for the band. And
Oh,
the big
okay.
deal was to paint the drum head, and it's like, so he would always paint it. I'm like, oh, I could do better, it's like, and I think one day the drum head broke or something, and then I was able to, and he never did it, so I ended up doing mine. And when I would make all the flyers, I'd like do woodcuts and make these handmade flyers. And I think also at the time I was trying to get into maybe an art magazine or do something, and nobody was paying, nobody would, there's no outlet for that. So I was going to Pasadena City College and I kind of started this art like it was supposed to be an art, music, writing fanzine called Censor This with John Miner, who does a lot of posters now, and everyone in my band. It was kind of this group, and then Shit Ed, Shit, or his name's Ed, but he went by Shithead. So it was kind of this collective of people that, and whoever wanted to be part of it. Basically, our premise, it was like a walking middle finger, and then the middle finger was actually a dick, and then the dick was like out and go. Whatever. It was really, it was like as obscene as possible, and our motto was like nothing would be turned away. So it was a lot of poo poo pee pee caca kind of potty mouth stuff, but so kind of, I was just doing art for that, making art for the band, and making these flyers that people were starting to collect. We kind of would do stickers, whatever we could make. A lot of hand done t-shirts and posters because I was taking the printmaking class with John Miner, who ended up being one of the teachers there later. And he does like a bunch of posters and stuff for like Shepherd Fairey and all these different artists and stuff. Anyways, somehow we were gonna interview the Vandals, and they didn't get back to us. So Shit Ed wrote this sarcastic piece pretending to interview them or something, and then sent it to them. And then Joe Escalante got a hold of us and like, okay, let's do this. And so they sent me. So I went to one of their houses in the Hollywood Hills somewhere and interviewed them, and it was really cool. And I think I met his brother Greg there, and Greg had a gallery. Also there was another guy, Gary Pressman, who was really big in the punk scene, and his dad owned the Key Club, and so he would put us on, wherever he could stick an opening, which used to be this metal club called Gazzari's on the Strip. So he would put us on anytime there was a fit. And so the Vandals were playing, and he's for this juxtapose art, whatever show, magazine, party. And so he's like, do you guys want to play? I was like, fuck yeah. Like, are you kidding me? Like, so we got to open for them, and in the back, oh, and they were like, and he was like, oh, do you want to hang some of your work in the little, backstage bar kind of VIP room? And I'm like, next to Robert Williams, all my heroes. And
Mhm.
I love Juxtapose Magazine, which is up in San Francisco or up there. I mean, you guys had Last Gasp, Juxtapose. You guys had so much cool stuff going on there art wise. So I was like, it was crazy. It was like just this amazing, we got to open for the Vandals. I got to show my art in, next to Robert Williams and all this stuff. And I think I made this like box, and it was like it was supposed to look like a game, like an ant farm, but instead of an ant farm, it was the people farm, and it was like a big ant. Like, I didn't really know how to do construction or how to sculpt that well, so it was kind of just like this crudely put together box with like a giant ant holding like little people, and then inside there was like a little window, and in the window it looked like, I kind of tried to make it look like an ant tunnels with like humans like giving birth and like eating each other and cannibalizing, like just all the, what would happen if you're forced to live in a small space. But I mean, I think I was using like Sculpey, and instead of like sculpting eyes, I think I just put like toothpick holes for eyes and like a mouth, and like it was so crudely done. But at the time, I was really trying to make it look real. But thinking back when I look at it, I'm like, oh God, it was so crudely made that it kind of looked even creepier. Like, who would make this? But Greg Escalante bought it, and from there he had like a tiki. Him and this guy Doug Nason were doing like tiki kind of art shows, so they invited me to do every show after that. And Greg was he was one of the board of directors for Juxtapose magazine, so it just opened so many doors. And so then they had a gallery called Copro Nason, which now is run by Gary Pressman. But anyways, they invited me to do a show, and then that led to also a show at La Luz, which was like the gallery in down, in Hollywood that he wanted to be in. And it's just kind of I didn't know what I was doing at first. I was kind of doing paintings. Nobody liked the paintings. I started doing these kind of shadow box things because I was working on animation with Fredster Animation Studios, which is also having the fanzine, this local animation music video director. Like he did the early Tool videos and Sepultura, like all these big bands, Oingo Boingo. And he saw the fanzine and he kind of, I met him at a bar and we all kind of were hanging out because and then he's like, "Hey, do you want to, we're always looking for people to, hands on deck if you want to do like help make the, animation stuff, whatever, like production stuff." It's like, "Fuck yeah." So that kind of all, learning how to make these little tiny miniatures, I could really refine what I was doing and I learned so much working, on sets and stuff. And then I kind of was like, "Oh, that, you're working on the stop motion animation." But everything only goes by like that. Like you barely see, you work on these amazing fucking scenes of little towns and one of the videos we worked on was Radha Mahata, Sepultura for Sepultura. And it was just this, I think I had like other friends, John Potty from Caltransvestites, like basically all these bands were like, we need everybody to help us make hundreds of these little puppets that we're gonna animate on the set. And we spent so much time building the city and you barely get to see it. So I just thought, what if that was frozen in kind of a shadow box, but also looking like those Catholic, because I was so inspired by like Catholic iconography. So I kind of did a show with all that stuff and everything sold. So I was like, oh my God,
Oh,
the
wow.
show was with Dave Lehman and Van Arno at Copro Nason. And I think I was just kind of the throwaway, like, up until that point, Greg and Doug, they were kind of, doing me and Gary, they were like, oh, let's support her art, like we like her music and all this stuff. And so I was kind of like, the favor. They were doing me a favor by letting me be in the show. And I went in that new direction and it went really well. And I mean, I think everybody's work sold out that show, but it was kind of from that I was able to grow this kind of art career. So that's the whole thing. You got it all.
That's really cool. I mean, it's really neat how like the little seed here pops into the next thing and then everything unpacks itself. I I was reading in the book you sent me, there's some parts about there where you were working in a costume store, and one of the people you got to work with was Dolly Parton.
Well, so that was one of my best friends, Winter Rosebud. She was the designer at Trashy Lingerie, which is an awesome that was another place. It was just such a great beginning spot for me to cut my teeth. Basically, she was the head designer there, and she really wanted me to work with her. And I went down there, and Mitch, who RIP, passed away, but the whole family was. It was really like you had to have a membership to go in.
Oh, wow.
Like, because it would be all the playmates would be there. And it was a lingerie shop and it was kind of like famous for having, movie stars go in there and get everything made. Like you don't know who you're gonna see. Like, was it Dolly Parton, Dennis Rodman, Carmen Electra, like you never know who's gonna be out there. And it was really born out of, I think it was originally a shoe store for men to have high heels because there wasn't a place for men to buy high heel shoes, and then it just kind of grew into lingerie. And then also they had all the sewers in the back, so it would be custom made
Oh,
for you.
wow.
And at a time when people were having I mean, people had boob jobs, but it wasn't talked about. Where do they buy their bra? If they're like a double Z, like where are they going to buy that? So we would custom make all that stuff there. And and also custom made costumes because this was before Target when you could just walk in and buy something in a plastic bag with the, nurse, on top. You had to like, it was the days of when you needed to get a costume, there'd be these magic stores or costume stores that would pop up in your neighborhood for that month, if you want to buy
Yeah.
Halloween decorations. Now you can go to, 99-cent store, which I don't think they have them anymore, but you can go to Home Depot and but back then it would be like the decorations weren't cheap. They were expensive. The costumes were because everything's being handmade and
Right.
they're all being rolled out just for that season. It wasn't, there was Hollywood toy and costume in Hollywood that kind of catered to people that would have, maybe S&M, like different stuff, but also costumes. That I think was the only one that was year round. And trashy lingerie, which would make whatever you wanted. If you needed something like, I think I made fairy wings for the cover of Rolling Stones once. The
Oh, wow.
For God, who was one of the comedians? I don't know. It's just such a great experience. I loved working there. And basically, I went there, and the owner, he would always wear a three-piece suit, and he was like a short guy, and he's just hilarious, Mitch. And he's like breathes really heavy. He's like, I want you to be my in-house artist. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that meant. I mean, I only got $6 an hour, but I was really flaky. I'm not good with a 9 to 5. So I just would show up whenever I'd show up. And he would just be like so excited to see me there, gave me this
That's
theater
awesome.
company car to drive around, basically gave me a credit card to buy like, materials with. I mean,
Yeah.
wasn't really making any money, but it was okay because I could make, he wanted a giant surfing Santa. And I had worked with Green Jelly or Green Jello back then. And they were making, the shit monster and all these things. Bill Manspeaker was the singer. Oh my God, there's so many fun times. And I just picked up all these things helping different people because of band stuff.
Mhm.
My God's doing the Max Sabbath now. So anyways, so I was like, how am I going to make this big giant surfing Santa life size on a surfboard? And a lot of my early attempts were shitty looking, but I look back and I'm like, yeah, AI can't do that. But it was I think I ended up dipping strips of sheets into latex and making this kind of armature out of like wood and wire and all this stuff and just making this giant. Another one he wanted was a spaceship on the roof. He always wanted, like, one of the things he wanted was man candy, and it was supposed to be a bunch of mannequin parts, like women, like, of course, going through this conveyor belt, like the different parts of them, and
Mhm.
all dressed like in really skimpy outfits, and then coming out the other end, a full, complete woman wearing this trashy lingerie stuff. And it was supposed to be Willy Wonka inspired, and I think it was everywhere it was supposed to say eat me, lick me, fuck me, suck me, like on these tiny like heart G-string underwear. And so we were putting the window all together. One of the sewers in the back had two little boys, and they were like scrubbing down the mannequins, like, these really specially made, big busted, big butted mannequins, which now they have everywhere, soaping them down on the sidewalk. And there was a lot of Orthodox Jews in the neighborhood because I don't know why, just Fairfax region. So they would go to, they would walk them down. It was just embarrassing. So I remember the first time the teacher was like, "Oh, I just love all your displays. They're so," and he's this old man. He starts squinting. He starts seeing. He's like, and he's just so upset by what he sees. And then Mitch comes out, and Mitch and his whole family, they're Jewish too. So they come out and they're like, but they're not Orthodox Jews. So, anyways, it
Right.
was kind of hilarious. So Mitch was always trying to push the envelope of stuff, and yeah, it was a crazy fun place to work. They would do crazy big parties. I think he had another one where he wanted it to be like this haunted like hallway that you walk into before you get into the main area where you have to show your ID, and then where they would check like 20 Rolodexes to look for your ID because he was like anti-computer. And so his idea was to put all these cobwebs, and then Winter's like, "Oh, I have this box of panties in the back because the thing is, it's a lifetime warranty. So, porn stars, strippers, whatever, they'd come in, they'd be like, oh, the crotch is torn out of my underwear. Can you redo it? And so a lot of the times the sewers are like, I don't want to fucking touch that shit. So they would throw it
Right.
into a box and they just remake it. So Winter pulled out this box of all the underwear of like, that had been saved over the years. And she's like, I know, let's make the cobwebs and hang the underwear in the cobwebs and put the black lights on it. So when you're walking through, you're like, ah, and there's just like these like, you know, underwear hanging down with these like neon spots all over them hitting your
Oh,
face. I'm like, I don't know if that's sanitary. Like
that's awesome.
maybe, yeah. Anyways, that was, the fun days, the fun days. I could go on and on. There's a lot of stories that aren't acceptable, but yeah, I myself, I think I got a peek at Dolly Parton. I didn't actually get to work with her, but Winter worked with her and said that she was fucking awesome and super.
Yeah. It's she's one of the few people I've only ever heard good things about. Mm.
oh man, like I was watching some of her videos and she was just so positive and
Yeah.
yeah, I love her. And love what she's become. I like
Yeah.
how supportive she is of everyone and just, she's cool.
Yeah. No, she's just so much goodness. Yeah, this is so cool. So that now you went from I'm thinking like Tongue, which was like really like punk, really raw, really hardcore, super intense, processing through art. Then you did Miss Derringer, which is a totally different thing, which is awesome too. But almost more like a rock with like a touch of country, a little bit more soulful. How did you get from that place to that place? I mean, or to just kind of like, is that just where you were at the moment, or
Well, so I kind of stopped doing tongue for, I think we did it for like over a decade. Like there was like a stretch there that we played like every single night. And I think one of the main breaking points was we had this deal to go to Japan. And we were supposed to sign the contract, and it was with this label that I think had suicidal tendencies or whatever was left of suicidal tendencies, the new version.
right?
And they were trying to branch out, and so part of it was like Ivan and I might have been VJs or something, and the guy from I think it was Domo Records or something, they were like going to sign us, and that morning. This guy shows up. I think Rick brought him, Baxter, from who is the singer of the Politics of Dancing or whatever that one hit wonder song was. So he showed up and he was going to represent us as our manager. And I was like, what? Like, this was literally as we were driving, we went to pick up this guy. And I don't know who he is. I was so taken aback. And at that point, I was like, you're either with us or not with us. I mean, so the band was all like, we didn't know what to do. And we had already been to so many different meetings and we were just going to be there to sign the contract. They were going to give us like $5,000, which shit, dude, I was working in the mall or like for $6 an hour. It's like, this
Yeah.
is like $5,000. Like, I don't give it, it's not that much money. I don't know what they were expecting. So, anyways, we had this, and we were gonna get to go to Japan, but part of it was like Baxter was like, well, he can't be your manager and producer and like blah blah blah. And anyways, we were dazzled, not really I wasn't dazzled, but he had our bass player, Rick, dazzled by this guy who, on Rick's behalf, he was seeing him manage his roommate's band and doing all these great things for them. Unbeknownst to Rick and the roommates and everything, he totally screwed them over, so it turned out to be a bad deal. But we go up there and the guy just looks, he puts his I want to say he almost puts his feet on the table, but we're at this big table and just blindsides all of us and he's like, we want 50,000 or nothing. And then the Japanese, like the guy from Japan was just like, what? And he looks at all of us. He's like, are you with him? And everybody is kind of like didn't know what to do. And so Rick was like, oh yeah, yeah, I'm with him. And so you kind of feel like, I guess we gotta go be with the band. And then that was it. The guy's like, okay, then nothing. Meeting done. And I was like, fuck. Like, and there was
That's
there was other
brutal
issues.
though.
I
Yeah.
know, but it was just like, but there was like other issues like that. Like it just felt like there was so much chaos happening. And
Yeah.
and we had definitely played like every month for like I mean, every night for like a decade. So it was like, so it just time to break. So I wasn't going to do music anymore. I was like, I'm done. My art career was starting to take off, and that was my sole point of income. And I met my now husband through one of the teachers at Art Center, Alex Gross. And when I met him, he was helping me with my art and stuff, and he was doing photography, and he's an awesome artist, Morgan Slade. But he was playing these songs, and the songs are really cool. They were just kind of these, guitar kind of little songs, and I'm like, oh, these are really great. And I'd missed singing. I mean, I liked to drink and sing, so it was kind of like. And at the time, my roommate, I don't know if we were roommates then, but Winter was at this point, Jimmy Wilsey had moved in, and he was going into this whole country era of his, and
Mhm.
he was already kind of there. He wrote the Wicked Game song and stuff, and
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah, so she bought him these like full nudie out like she bought it was by Nudie's assistant made these like Jaime's Western wear. Made Nudie did all those like cowboy rhinestoned outfits for all the I'm trying to think of some of the stars. Anyways, so she bought him these, and and he was just such a great, kind of guitar player that would play these, haunting melodies, using kind of surf sounding, but kind of country and all this stuff. And so he was listening to a lot of country. And so we were listening to a lot of country at that point. Like if I went to her house, it was just all country music.
Mhm.
When I heard Morgan's songs, it kind of made me want to sing again. And so we kind of were doing some stuff, and Long Gone John, who he was a big art collector and he bought several of my works, and he also has sympathy for the record industry. So his whole thing is he'd take out a full page ad and juxtapose of whatever band he was putting out. I think the biggest bands he had were the White Stripes, and then he ended
Oh,
up
okay.
selling their catalog and basically I think that was, but he would do a lot of bootlegging of stuff. But he has tons of bands on his in his repertoire. I don't think when we were doing it, I think the White Stripes were maybe just coming up at that point. Anyway, so they were, his label was like really big. So he was like, if you put together something, you could be he would do these endless compilations of this time just the girls, this time just the girls part
Okay.
three, like because he liked girl bands. So he would be like, well, he liked any kind of bands, but he definitely had, because there wasn't, it was a lot of male dominated artists.
Mhm.
So let's give it a shot. But which was kind of sucked. That was one thing Tongue always hated. Like, we're not a girl band because it was just me. But but anyways, so we did. So we worked on it. We got, different people together. Like Jimmy Wilsey was one of them. Derek O'Brien recorded the first one. We had Mark Miller, who is a big like kind of country blues. I think gosh, I don't know what bands he's on now, but he was really talented. Um, and then later we have Lightning Bill Woodcock, who now I think he plays with Bow Wow Wow or Annabella's
Mm,
band, and
cool.
but he was in a bunch of old punk bands, and that's how I knew him. And I knew Derek from Social Distortion, and but he was doing punk rock karaoke with like Dez. Anyways, it just kind of grew from there. And then after we did the first record, which is a lot more kind of folksy and stuff, we got this manager WC, and he really wanted it to go in like a girl band direction, kind of like 60s. Um, Oh, who's that guy that got busted? Phil
Oh,
Spector,
Phil
kind
Spector,
of,
yeah.
yeah, sound. Anyways, he wanted to do something more in that realm. So it kind of shaped, and then he introduced us to Clem Burke, who played drums with us. And
That's so cool.
oh my God, it's just so many amazing. So we were mainly just kind of doing stuff in the studio, and then we try to play live. But I have the worst anxiety. Like I hate performing live, and I always did. And with Tongue, it was easy because I would just drink a bunch, and then that would be like my spinach. Like I just feel like, and
Yeah.
then I go out there, and I would have a lot of fun. I wouldn't remember the night, but that's how I got through. But with Miss Dare, I can't really sing. I'm not a singer. I was like a screamer, and my voice goes out really easily because I scream too much, and I couldn't hit the notes. So it was like I couldn't really drink because I'd be really off key. So
Oh,
that kind of so that was hard for me not drinking, and it was just nerve-wracking. So to do that, I'm like, okay, well maybe, and thankfully my best friend Winter and I had my other one of our dancers Aileen, who also worked at Trash and Lingerie. I'm like, oh, I can get all these and Adele, like I get all these costumes made. Adele Mildred, she makes hats and stuff. Anyways, I'm like, fuck it. I'm gonna make all our outfits. Like we're gonna have all like kind of, distract from the fact I can't sing, and we're
oh,
gonna have
come
dance.
on. I gotta say, you've got a great voice and I mean, and the costuming is fantastic. For people who haven't seen the videos, it's really, really cool.
Oh, well, we were so fortunate. We had my friend, Janine Jarman had like heroin salon. So we were so fortunate. It was just at a time I was in downtown LA, and I just knew all these different people who were like costumers or makeup artists or hair designer. Krista Collins, which ended up being Rick married her from Tongue, Rick's wife. They do Woolly Bandits and went on to do the Seeds. And I don't know, there's just all these people that are connecting, that probably, you know, I don't know. It was just fun time. So it kind of just grew out of there. And then yeah, we just got to we were so we got to do like a mini New York tour with Blondie. And oh, we started, we played with them at the Key Club, and let's see, we went on tour with Reverend Horton Heat and Cracker and Girl in a Coma. And gosh, we got to do a bunch of tours with not tours, but um, House of Blues with Bad Religion because Natalia Fabia is a friend of mine. She's this amazing painter, and she is married to oh my gosh, I'm spacing on his name, the bass player. Um, what's his name, Morgan? Oh, sorry, I'm trying to find out. Oh my God. Sorry, my coffee's running out, so I think I need another charge.
Um, so I know we talked before, and like so basically you were doing all this music, all this art, and then you had a child, which is like, a pretty major creative endeavor. And you really focused on parenting over the last decade or so. And now you're kind of like in this next phase where you're like, okay, what do I do now? And I'm just curious, have you thought about like, are we going to get more art? Are we going to get more music? Are we going to get, I'm assuming there's going to be a mix of the two of some kind.
I mean, I don't know. It's so, because I have so much anxiety and stuff. And then when I was really struggling being a parent in the beginning and still now. And then I was diagnosed with ADHD because my daughter was also diagnosed, but in my 40s, because I didn't have her till I was like 39, I got pregnant. It was not really planned, but it was kind of like, okay, it's now or never. And and then I had to go on bed rest really fast. And there was like Cecil was working on a documentary. We were working on a documentary about the girls' home, and then we got an opportunity to show it at the New York MoMA, and Debbie Harry for a Juxtaposed Film Festival. If he could edit it down to like 15 minutes about my work, just because Greg Escalante, RIP, he was so awesome, but he was like, "Hey, we don't have any women. Can you?" Do you think you can put something together? I'm like, fuck. But at that point, I ended up on bed rest. So they went on and did it. Debbie Harry was so gracious to introduce the movie and everything. But I didn't get to see it. And I ended up, gosh, I think you might be able to see clips of it. I think there's a preview. Ryan Gosling did an interview in it because he was my
I
neighbor
saw
at
the
the time.
trailer. It was very cool.
But we never, no fault of his. I think I've just been in hiding. But yeah, after I went on bed rest because it was that or like lose the pregnancy, it kind of was like, oh shit, like everything's different. And then we had to move from downtown and rent had skyrocketed. So I never really had a space. I still have my loft downtown, but now Luke Chu is there. He's another amazing artist and he kind of has taken over. Um, anyways, just I think at some point they're gonna take it over from me, but I've been subletting it just because it's so expensive now. But so we just kind of had to get a space out of downtown because it was like the parks had needles in them, and it just wasn't a place to raise a kid. And yeah, I just didn't have a space to make art, and then I just couldn't focus. Like I still can't. It's like I don't have a day-to-day schedule. Like every day is different, Like well, this morning is this, but it's like it's hard for me to stay on task and even on topic. So it has been challenging. And I think my last show was in Japan. It was a group show with Karen Hassau and and Dan Quintana and at Vanilla Gallery and and I think at one point my daughter is like, "Oh, you like art more than me," and that was kind of heartbreaking.
Oh.
And I was actually staying at the studio because I didn't have any space at my house, and I can't focus. Like I need to just if I need to lock myself in a room, and it'll take me like a week before I can actually do anything. And then from that week till whenever I finish, is I won't leave, I won't eat, I won't sleep. I just once I get into something, I don't stop. But getting into something takes longer and longer and longer. So that's been the hardest point. So I'm just like been really using the kid excuse for a while now. Um, but I don't know what I'm going to do. I have no solid ideas, but I have been taking courses. During the pandemic, I finished most of my fashion courses, or I took fashion at PCC, like pattern making and that kind of thing. And then I took ceramics and yeah, so and some jewelry making. So hopefully I can merge all of that into it. And I don't know.
Well, I'm excited to see where it takes you next. I think it's gonna be really cool.
Oh, thank you.
So, well, this has been so much fun. I know one other thing we talked about a little bit before, and I don't know if you want to talk about it all, how the fires have impacted you.
Yeah, the Altadena, let's see, I had a hat around here somewhere. I don't know where it went. But yeah, the Altadena fires were just so it's so devastating because I grew up in Altadena and it's like the pet store that I would go to get our dog food, the bike shop, like those all burned down. I mean, we got so lucky. Like our house is standing, and we live in a cul-de-sac, and we are on the there's about six houses on the cul-de-sac, and three of them burned down. So, I mean, it's heartbreaking seeing what's happened. I feel removed from it. We're still displaced. The fires happened in January, and what month is it? We're in I
Mm,
think June. We're in June. So we are hopefully moving back next month. It's been the insurance company has been working on the smoke damage and stuff. But we're so fortunate. Our stuff is still intact and our place is still there. But it's so weird, some of those houses, the park, some of those structures have been there for over 100 years and they're just gone, and plus it's like the neighborhood has a lot of rich history of like a lot of jazz musicians, a lot of African American, figureheads, and just so many authors, right? Plus, there's a huge like occult presence there. I don't know if you know about like JPL was run by, oh God, what's that guy's name? I can't, Jack Parsons. I don't know if you're familiar with any of and so Jack Parson, he actually blew himself up, but he started making like rocket fuel, and that was kind of the backbone of JPL, which the fire kind of stopped right before JPL,
oh,
thankfully, because then it would have gone up that canyon. But yeah, it stopped right a little bit before that. But anyways, there's just tons of cool history and stuff. The Theological Society or Theosophical Society, and I don't know, just there's so much, and they're working really fast to rebuild it. But sadly, the one thing is like we're hoping that a bunch of developers don't come in and make it gated community. I know that at one point Warner Brothers bought a bunch of houses, and I see like before it was like living in downtown LA, it just kind of felt like the back lot of movie studios, which was cool and sometimes, but also sometimes they're total assholes. Like they don't understand that people also live there. Sometimes they're cool, but anyways, I started seeing a lot more filming in Altadena. So I don't know what's going to become of it. Not to say filming is bad because that brings in a lot of jobs for a lot of people, including myself. But I just, I worry that plus it was like you go down the street and you see so many different styles of houses, from like craftsman to like like Spanish style, like just,
hmm.
you know, so many. Now it's probably all going to be like those 80s houses right to the edge of the parameter, no gardens, just big, dumb beige houses with 80s style beige carpets. I don't know.
Well, whatever happens, I know that your art will be a nice contrast to it. So
I hope.
I
I know.
think so.
Like, hopefully I can do it honor, do it justice. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest challenge with art sometimes is that when you've done something that people really liked, is being able to step away from that and go, I don't care what people think because I don't care what people think is what got you to where you got in the first place. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's where the creativity is.
yeah.
Creativity is, and I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I mean, which is hard to do in today's society with the internet society because um it's like you put especially for a lot of developing like young artists, they'll maybe see something online, be inspired by it, maybe copy it, put it up there as like their new thing or whatever. There's no shame in that. Everybody starts somehow and you start by mimicking stuff that you like. But they get pigeonholed because very early on they put this thing up there and then everybody's commenting, they're, getting adrenaline, hits or dopamine hits off of all
Right.
the likes and all this stuff. And the minute they try to branch out and do something different, people will criticize that. Oh, I like that other stuff you were doing. And it just takes one, maybe not even harsh comment, but just something like that, in the mind of someone like me, I'd be like, oh my God, like, you ignore all the great comments. It's just those two comments that, what the, those affect you. And I think that affects people's creative process. And plus it's like this echo chamber of the same fucking images, the same symbols.
Yeah.
And it was kind of interesting to see stuff grow organically because you go to a show and you'd notice just out of nowhere, or like talking to other artists, it's like, oh, everybody's working on octopuses, or oh, and that was pre-internet. So how did we get this weird collective consciousness? Where was it coming from? But it would be subtle, and all of the different symbols and ideas and would come up just so organically and have their own unique take. Whereas now it's like, you're just being fed this stuff. Whereas before, it's like you're walking down the street, you see a street sign, and you just saw this, you came out of the museum, you just saw that art piece, and everything kind of falls, and then you're taking a shower, and all kind of comes together in your mind. You get these ideas, and now it's just kind of, fed to you. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think I also think of like, back in the day you had Bob Dylan going from acoustic to electric and the world lost its mind, like the hive mind went, no, this can't happen. And he just went, well, fuck off. It's going to happen. Right. So I think we just need more fuck you in art. It's like,
yeah, and I mean, who knows where this whole AI direction and art's gonna go? It's kind of mind-blowing. You can make a whole movie. You can make a whole it's I mean, the stuff is fantastic. Like, I gotta be honest. Like, I'm seeing some of these AI images, and I messed around with some of the programs, and you can do anything. You just direct it. The only thing that's kind of weird is that it doesn't keep the continuity. So if you're like, you have this main character that you've worked on, and this plot or whatever, they kind of subtly change. Or like, I think they just fixed the having six fingers because a lot of times you
oh,
look
I
at
know. I
the
saw
hand,
that was really freaky. Yeah.
which was also kind of awesome, like,
Yeah.
but that's gone now. But still the people aren't the same. But I think once they get into it, it's gonna really, what's gonna happen, how much of that is going to be the sad thing to think is like how much of that is just going to be influenced by the people controlling the media, or the programs,
Yeah.
or what's going to be brainwashed into us and what's real. It's just kind of, I don't know. So I'm actively trying to break away from it. So I'm not really on social media or anything. I do have a social media account, Elizabeth McGrath Art, but I haven't been on it for a while. And then my website, which I'm gonna update, but it's just my last show. So at Corey Helford, so that it's not any of my old stuff, which has a lot more of the shadow boxes. Which I should give you my first book because I just gave you the last
Oh,
one from
I loved
Podcast.
it. It's wonderful.
Ah,
So.
thank you.
Well, hey, again, thank you. Elizabeth McGrath.com if people want to check out some more of your work. And I hopefully everybody who watches the interview is going to be like, okay, I can't wait for what comes next.
Uh-oh,
So
the
I
pressure's
know I'm
on.
excited, as I think I love your creativity, and I think you really, it's like you don't just step out of the box, you decorate the box.
Oh, thanks.
So, I
Well,
just,
same to you. I like your daringness and your the way you just attack music and you just do it. And oh my God, your new stuff, amazing.
oh,
Uh,
thank you.
really cool. I bought the SoundCloud or whatever thing. So,
Oh, thank you.
oh, thank you for putting it out. And
Well,
thank Ginger. Oh my gosh. I have stories of when we used to tour with her. God, we did some show in it was an army base or something in San Diego, Camp Pendleton. And we played, oh my God, she brought down the house. Like there was just all these soldiers there and all this stuff, and
that's
they
awesome.
fucking went ape shit. And she was singing My Vida Loca. And she had like I think we were staying in the hotel room next to her. And I think, the guys in my band like, oh, we're gonna party or whatever, we're gonna meet chicks, so they never did. But all of a sudden we hear all this noise and we're just like, what? And we like we're like, let's go hang out with Ginger. And like all the bar had come back to Ginger's. Like she was
That's
having a good
awesome.
time. Yeah, it was so awesome. She got the soldiers like wearing, different, boas and dancing around, and like it was cool. It was really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, she's gonna love that. So, well, hey, thank you, and I can't wait to see you in person again.
Yeah, yeah. Let me know when you're in town, and I look forward to when you're playing out here too.
Definitely, definitely. All right.